So, in order to analyse this opening, I kind of wanted to go back through two previous videos and points that are made within them because I think it matters and I think it's significant to potentially the plot of Amphoreus here. The fact that Amphoreus can be observed in the garden, and could it even be direct manifestations of the Aeons themselves? That's significant here. Then, there is also this, a description of Amphoreus being akin to Pandora's box. Anyone who knows about that story and the box knows that it contained the woes and troubles of humanity. Sorrow, disease, vice, violence, greed, madness, death and old age, which were released when Pandora's curiosity got the better of her and ended paradise for humankind. The whole point of this story is to convey a warning that when you go looking for something, be wary about what you will find. But the thing is, what was in that box wasn't a living being or any living entities. They were concepts of the woes of mankind. And the thing that was left afterwards, once those concepts were released, was hope. Because paradise was lost, there was the hope left that things would be eventually better, that you can avoid these woes. And this could be the same thing that Amphoreus is meant to show. It is potentially just the memory of this struggle to provide hope for the future, potentially against the destruction, which would make sense of why we're able to observe them via the garden. And the opening itself literally shows us observing them through the garden, or in a state of non-existence beyond the memory. So this opening little scene here of a hand across the mirror, this is Herta, because we see the same scene again at the very end. It shows the way that Herta is observing the events, which would be through a mirror that seems to be utilising the technology of the Garden of Recollection. This isn't the first time that Herta's been implied to use technology from the garden. It is also not the only case in which she has seemingly connections to the garden, while not being a member directly. It's interesting because it suggests that she's always been able to do this. Well, in that case then, how much does she know about our group, prior to our knowledge? She was interested in the Stellaron, yet her interest in March seems to be non-existent. Does she already know her deal? Aside from obviously Kevin being shown shirtless here, the messing around with gold has associations of its own within Honkai Star Rail's lore. Gold blood visually connects to Nanook directly, to the Aeon of Destruction. And smearing this golden blood on himself actually seems to cause marks or wounds, like Nanook has. It creates a rather concerning image of what the Chrysosaurs are if they all have this connection to the destruction through the golden blood. And the fact that he's shown almost basking in it makes me think he's going to end up a destruction unit. And it also maybe makes a clear point that he is more significant than the others when it comes to the utilization of his position as a Chrysosaur. This next bit requires being slowed down in order to actually see it, because it goes by so quickly. It's only a few frames. We can see it was almost the face of a mask. Whether it be an enemy or something else, who knows? But we do know they appear again later in this opening, fighting phainon and the others. So clearly they have some story relevance. Then we get to see the title for the game. We've got the unique symbols that seem to be present and important to Amphoreus, likely representing the Chrysosaurs, and of course the Astral Express itself in gold. And blue, which blue is the alternative way that we can perceive gold. These next two shots are establishing shots of both the Titan Kefli and the location that he is positioned, which is Okima City. Here we see Aglia surrounded by threads and her mannequins. We don't actually know what the threads do yet or what they symbolise, but threads do appear in Greek mythology. They are connected to the three fates, the Morai, which are an inspiration for Treeby and the 3 girls that are a part of them. So, the reason why threads are used to represent a life is because the length is a representation of how much time a person will have, which could mean that the threads in this case could be related to time. Meanwhile, the apple in her grasp could either represent forbidden knowledge or paradise. Mem continues to act as our through line in this opening and leads us to the Dramases, which at this point we didn't actually know what these things were when the trailer released. Now we do. Here are the 3 Fates characters specifically. We know that they are messengers, so the coins and the present might be something that they are delivering as part of a message. And the Dromas being here carrying the load makes sense. This would be Cypher, and we don't actually know what her core flame, if she even has one, is. We know that she's connected to the Chrysosaurs, but not much beyond that. Based on Cypher's association with Treeby in this scene, it could imply that they're both from Janopolis, but there's also the potential that this girl is just travelling in one of the other regions and it doesn't directly connect to where they're from at all. So here are Anaxa and Hyacinth, who seem to be in an area that's surrounded in greenery, which to me would connect them both to the Grove of Epiphany, which seems to have a Gaia-like titan, which is the titan that represents the Earth itself. Here is Mydia, who is connected to Custom Kramnos, which is already made a point of to be connected to war, and to have people who drink blood, and the mention of an advertisement instead suggesting that they drink pomegranate juice. This culture is likely inspired by the Spartans. Here is Castoris, who seems to be connected to Styxia specifically, which is based on the river Styx, the idea of a leading to the afterlife or underworld. We see petals as well flowing, which likely connect to the strange dragon that we see in other pieces of media. And we also see its silhouette present here. In this little moment, we see the blade of Castrum Kremnos falling, which could either be tied to the boss battle that we end up enduring with the Titan, or it could be after the Titan's demise. This is Anaxa surrounded by a group of people. We don't know if the characters are actually important or NPCs. This would be Cypher surrounded by flame, maybe implying a destruction or damage to Janopolis. This would be the Astral Express, seemingly either arriving upon the land or involved in combat again, like with Sunday's boss fight. Or there is the very real chance that we do not receive a positive reception from this world when the Astral Express arrives. We know, of course, Mem is present, but this space is not illuminated on. We don't know where it is based on any of the media we've seen so far. Something interesting about this scene, though, is it actually predates one that could be quite symbolic in the transition. Mem is centerfold. What ends up being in the center is the sun here. The sun moves from Mem's position, which could imply a connection between Mem and whatever the sun of this world is, whatever the Chrysosaurs are trying to save. This is obviously to show the aim of the group. The aim is to take the authorities of the Titans to save their world, which involves maintaining their sun, which is the thing that is warding off the shadow. And here in this moment we see it transition into a moon and it burn away, which the transition of the sun disappearing is what will cause probably the end of this world. And we see that the Trailblazer is obviously clearly quite concerned about this. This shot shows all of the characters that are low here. Presumably, this is Mydia, we can see him. There's Treeby. This is phainon. This is the Trailblazer based on the colours. And based on future transitions of the scene. And the person behind them looks like Anaxa. Mem seems to surge forward, and the moment that Mem gets close enough, they seem to transform into the pen and activate the Path of Remembrance. And then the Path of Remembrance seems to have such a profound effect on Amphoreus to the point it stops this world and breaks it apart at the seams, which enables us to see Serene, which connects her to the Path of Remembrance and to Mem. I also have no idea what Serene is saying. The scene... Something is shooting a laser at something, but I don't actually know what it is in this case. And the shapes of the buildings, I'd say maybe the curvature of certain parts. This makes me think that it's Okima based on the spiraling of buildings. Based on the little map we get, it's the only place that actually has spiraling in its buildings like this. So this would suggest that Okima is shooting at something, unless these scenes are disconnected, but there's no way to know. Then we see the sun within the grasp of Kefali burning bright with Aglia in front. Then we get to see the masked figure that was hidden right near the beginning of the opening, in those very few frames that I mentioned before. But this is showing everyone fighting them, but in two different seeming settings, which could imply that this fight is spliced to show two different instances we fought the masked person. Then there is a scene of Chibi that acts as a transition from this fight with the masked person into a scene where we're fighting one of the Titans. Is she connected to either of these fights? Because otherwise I don't get why she's the transition here. In this next moment, we actually get to see the Titan of Castum Kremnos fighting seemingly. There's Maida, I'm pretty confident. They're also fighting phainon and Castoris. Aglia seeming to watch on in anguish in another scene as the flames burn. Then, Maida seemingly approaching Castum Kremnos. Castoris bypassing a blast of purple rays, which would potentially be connected to the dragon, and trying to embrace us as the dragon appears and surges power. We see the progression of Sunday to Welt to Himiko to Danheng to us, with March missing and being the only one not present. The hint at the characters who will be accompanying us in this world directly. The transition into Finn and observing the constellations and a seemingly giant eye. The illustration of this seems purposeful because we have the top of the eyelid here. All of the galaxy fills out only the space in a shape that kind of matches the progression of that eye, and here is the pupil. And somehow this transitions into Serene in a different state than we've previously seen her. Unless the art is specifically done in like a watercolor style, this harkens back to the Herrscher of Humanity, or Herrscher of Human Ego, from Honkai Impact 3rd, which shows Elysia, the character who Serene is based on, with sections of white hair. And it is an interesting transition, considering we see a giant eye just moments before, and here we see her eyes shut, and tears flowing up to the center of her head, as if to kind of illustrate a third eye, which then transitions into a flame that the Trailblazer holds dear, implying that Serene is innately connected to the thriving of this world, potentially the sun itself. And then all of this is captured by March's camera that then crystallizes with her into ice, illustrating her position in this. If she is capable of capturing all of these moments, then at minimum she's a memo keeper. But I think that the comment about manifestation of the Aeons holds here. It has been a very long-term theory that March is Thule, or the Remembrance. And I would hope they're going to deliver on it. I'm not going to say that for an outright fact, but it would be the best outcome, probably. You see her crystallizing, and then you see her able to observe that and the express itself, which does make me question her intentions, because if she has known all this time March's deal, then why is she simply watching unless there's something that's going to come out of this that benefits her or understanding? And her flashing us a smile, showing her awareness of our position observing this as well. That is all the visuals that can be identified based on our understanding. I did debate on doing a lyric analysis because the lyrics are public knowledge for the full version of the opening song. I do think there is some value in analysing some of them, but There are a lot of them that just have generalized meanings, and there's also some pieces that, while they have intrigue towards them, we don't know specifically what they're referring to. So it feels like a waste of time tacking that on at this point. So in the future, I'm thinking either I do it as a separate video, or maybe once we've got all of Amphoreus' story, I can go back through the opening and the lyrics and analyze them again and see how on point I was, or all the stuff that I missed that both things could be alluding to. I think that might be a fun little exercise. But other than that, that's all there is to this video. I had a lot of fun doing it. Hopefully you guys will look forward to exploring Amphoreus with me when it comes out. But until then, have a good night, morning, day, whatever time it is, wherever you guys are in the world, and take care of yourselves. If you enjoyed this, then I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed. I don't tend to do call to actions. I think it's really obnoxious. But on videos that are kind of high effort like this, I think it's somewhat fair to do it once in a blue moon. So I'd appreciate it. Other than that, take care.